September 9th, 2025, Beijing, a city of over 20 million people, was thrown into chaos as a violent hailstorm tore across the capital. What began as a routine thunderstorm alert exploded into one of the most destructive weather events the city has ever seen. In just hours, nearly 5 inches of rain fell across districts, while hailstones larger than baseballs rained down with terrifying force. Some chunks of ice weighed over an ounce, slamming into cars, shattering windows, and puncturing rooftops. Streets turned white in minutes, covered not with snow, but with frozen shrapnel from the sky. Thousands of vehicles were destroyed, hundreds of homes damaged, and countless residents left in shock. Viral videos showed drivers fleeing for cover as the pounding hail made the city sound like a war zone. For Beijing, it was more than a storm. It was survival. The first warnings came just after noon. Beijing's Weather Bureau issued alerts for thunderstorms, strong winds, and hail. At first, residents went about their day. By late afternoon, the sky darkened. And then, the city was under siege. Lightning split the horizon, thunder rolled like cannon fire, and torrents of rain pounded the streets. But it wasn't the rain that terrified people. It was the ice. Chunks of hail, some as large as ping-pong balls, others nearly the size of baseballs, plummeted from the sky. Many weighed more than an ounce, striking with enough force to shatter car windshields and dent metal like thin tin. In northern districts such as Miyun and Huairu, sidewalks turned white in minutes. In Mentugu, nearly 5 inches of rain fell in a single hour, flooding streets before the hail even stopped. Residents screamed from balconies as the storm raged. Those caught outside sprinted for cover under gas stations and bridges. The sound was deafening, a relentless barrage, like gunfire rattling across the city. For Beijing's millions, this was no ordinary storm. It was nature unleashed, and the capital was under direct assault. The destruction was immediate and widespread. Thousands of vehicles parked on city streets became the storm's first victims. Windshields cracked wide open, side windows exploded, and car bodies were pocked with hundreds of dents, as if they had been through a battlefield. Insurance hotlines were overwhelmed. More than 1,000 claims were filed before the night was over. Homes were hit just as hard. Roofs were punctured, windows shattered, and rainwater poured into living rooms. Families scrambled to patch holes with tarps, buckets, and blankets. But for many, the damage was beyond repair. Traffic collapsed into chaos. Panicked drivers abandoned their cars and rushed under overpasses or gas station canopies, clogging roads across Beijing. The soundtrack of the city was terrifying. Blaring horns, people shouting, and the relentless pounding of hail smashing against metal and concrete. One cyclist recalled that his helmet saved his life after a baseball-sized hailstone struck him directly. Without it, he said, I would have been seriously injured. In just minutes, Beijing was transformed. The world's most populous capital looked less like a modern metropolis and more like a frozen war zone, battered, broken, and overwhelmed by ice from the sky. As the hail subsided, the images pouring across social media stunned the world. Videos showed rooftops collapsing under the relentless pounding of ice. Streets, usually jammed with traffic, were blanketed in a thick carpet of white, looking more like a Midwestern blizzard than the capital of China in September. In clip after clip, residents held up hailstones the size of chicken eggs and baseballs, their hands shaking in disbelief. One viral video captured a man sprinting for cover as hailstones slammed into the pavement around him like exploding firecrackers. Another showed families trapped inside cars, windows shattered, children screaming as the storm hammered the metal roof above them. Eyewitnesses described the sound as a war zone and like gunfire from every direction. For millions online, it was a terrifying spectacle. A city brought to its knees by frozen missiles falling from the sky. Inside emergency shelters, neighbors huddled together, sharing food and blankets, telling stories of close calls and near misses. Yet outside, the wreckage spoke louder. Beijing had endured one of the most violent hailstorms in living memory. Beijing wasn't alone. As the capital struggled, provinces hundreds of miles away faced their own nightmare. In Jiangxi, residents watched in horror as hailstones the size of goose eggs, some nearly half a pound each, punched through tin rooftops and injured families inside their homes. An elderly man described it bluntly. "They were as big as bowls, pounding my roof like thunder. Anyone outside had to cover their head and run for their life." In Zhejiang, torrential rain turned highways into rivers, leaving cars stranded in several feet of water. Farmers in Fujian, Guangxi, and Guangdong woke up to devastation. Greenhouses lay in ruins, crops flattened, and tens of thousands of acres of farmland destroyed in just hours. Entire harvests, an entire season's work, were wiped out in a single storm. Social media was flooded with footage from across China. Homes pierced by ice, shattered fields, streets covered in thick layers of white. For millions, the disaster wasn't just terrifying, it was financial ruin. What struck Beijing was part of a larger weather outbreak. Across multiple provinces, China was under siege from the sky. Meteorologists quickly explained how such destruction was possible. It wasn't just bad luck. It was the perfect storm. A low-pressure trough swept across northern China, pulling in a surge of warm, humid air from the south. At the same time, a cold front dropped in from the north. The collision of these two air masses triggered violent vertical currents, powerful enough to lift water droplets high into the atmosphere. Each time the droplets were hurled upward, they froze, growing layer by layer until they crashed back to Earth as massive hailstones. Some measured 2 inches across, larger than a ping-pong ball. Others were closer to 3 inches, the size of a baseball. At that size and weight, falling at speeds over 70 miles per hour, hail can smash windshields, dent metal, and even cause serious injury or death. Scientists also warn this storm wasn't a freak occurrence. Warmer oceans and shifting climate patterns are adding fuel to convective systems worldwide. In the United States, billion-dollar hail disasters have hit Texas, Colorado, and the Midwest. Beijing's nightmare is part of a global trend. Extreme weather is getting stronger, and no city is immune. By nightfall, the scale of destruction was undeniable. Thousands of vehicles lay ruined in the streets, windshields shattered, bodies dented beyond repair. Brand new cars worth tens of thousands of dollars were reduced to junk in minutes. Insurance companies were swamped. More than 1,000 claims poured in the same evening, with thousands more expected in the days ahead. Homes and apartments across Beijing reported catastrophic damage. Roofs were punctured, windows blown out, and rainwater poured through ceilings into kitchens and bedrooms. Families scrambled with buckets and plastic sheets, but many properties were left uninhabitable. Beyond the city, the agricultural toll was devastating. In Jiangxi, Fujian, and Guangxi, tens of thousands of acres of crops were destroyed. Greenhouses collapsed like crushed soda cans, and fruit orchards were shredded. For farmers, it wasn't just damage. It was the loss of an entire year's income. Local governments rushed to set up emergency shelters, but the economic blow is expected to run into the hundreds of millions of dollars. For many ordinary families, that meant debts, repair bills, and futures uncertain. The storm was over, but its scars, financial, emotional, and physical, had only begun to show. What happened in Beijing should not be seen as a distant disaster. It's a warning that echoes across the globe. The United States knows this threat well. In recent years, massive hailstorms have pounded Texas, Colorado, and the Midwest, causing billions in damages. Baseball-sized hail in San Antonio shattered roofs and skylights. In Denver, a single storm in 2017 became one of the costliest hail events in U.S. history. Just last year, Oklahoma farmers lost entire harvests to ice falling from the sky. Scientists warn these events are becoming more frequent and more destructive. Warmer air holds more moisture. Warmer oceans fuel more instability. And when cold air masses collide with that excess energy, the results are explosive. Hailstones bigger, storms stronger, and damages higher. Beijing's nightmare is not confined to China. From Dallas to Des Moines, from Los Angeles to New York, every American city faces the same reality. Extreme weather is accelerating. The storm of September 2025 was more than a local tragedy. It was a glimpse into our collective future, one where survival may depend on how quickly we adapt to a harsher, more unpredictable planet. This storm was not just about ice. It was about survival. In Beijing, thousands of cars were destroyed, homes ripped open, and crops wiped out. Families huddled under shelters, children cried in darkened apartments, and farmers watched a year's work vanish in minutes. But the bigger question is this: what if it happened here? Could New York, Chicago, or Dallas withstand hailstones the size of baseballs falling at 70 miles per hour? Could your community recover from losses in the hundreds of millions overnight? Tell us what you think in the comments. If this report opened your eyes, hit the like button, share it with friends who follow extreme weather, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll keep bringing you fact-based coverage of the world's most powerful disasters. Because in a world of rising risks, awareness isn't optional, it's survival.